Good day, students. I'm Mrs. Janse van Rensburg, and I'm your tutor for BES ENG32 in English. The slides that I will be sharing with you today will be focusing on the assignment that needs to be done. So the following slides will help you with the content in the assignment. Okay, the first thing, complex and compound sentences. What is a complex sentence? It is made up of an independent clause and one or more dependent clauses connected to it. A dependent clause is similar to an independent clause or a complete sentence. It lacks one of the elements that would need it to complete the sentence. For example, because Mary and Samantha arrived at the bus station before noon. It doesn't make sense. It cannot stand on its own. That's why it's a complex sentence, and it's made up of two different independent clauses. While he waited at the train station and after they left on the bus. Those are all examples of complex sentences, but they're not complete, so beware of that. A compound sentence refers to a sentence made up of two independent clauses or complete sentences connected to one another with a coordinating conjunction. For example, Joe waited for the train, but the train was late. Joe waited for the train can be on its own. It's a full sentence. And then you can again say the train was late. Both of them would be able to stand on its own, but to make it a compound sentence, you add the two and you add the but, which is the conjunction. Another example, I looked for Mary and Samantha at the bus station, but they arrived at the station before noon and left on the bus before I arrived. So, I looked for Mary and Samantha at the bus station. That could be a complete sentence, all on its own, and it makes sense. They arrived at the station before noon and left on the bus before I arrived could be another sentence. So when you put them together, you formulate the compound sentence. And then again you have to add a conjunction, which in this case would be but. Okay, what are dependent and independent clauses? An independent clause can stand alone as a sentence, beginning with a capital letter and ending with a terminal punctuation such as period. Independent means you do not need someone to help you. It can be all by itself. A dependent clause cannot stand alone as a sentence. Instead, it must be attached to an independent clause. Dependent means you need someone. You need something else to make it complete. Examples of dependent clauses would be, since she laughed at different men. The sentence wouldn't be a sentence. It doesn't make sense. There needs to be more detail to make it a proper sentence for you to understand. When the saints go marching, not a full sentence. Because she smiled at him, not a full sentence. Those are all examples of dependent clauses. Types of clauses. Now, you get different types of parts of speech. Now you get different types of clauses. Relative clause. A relative clause begins with a relative pronoun and functions as an adjective. For example, the ceremony, which several celebrities attended, received widespread media coverage. That would tell you who is it related to. So which several celebrities attended is the relative pronoun, is the relative clause, because it's not just one word. The noun clauses. A noun clause functions as a noun in a sentence. A vacation is what I need most. What I need most would be the noun clause. Adverbial clauses. Many subordinate clauses begin with subordinate conjunctions. When Mauna Loa began erupting and sweeping lava into the air, we drove away as quickly as we could. So that whole first bit up until the comma would be the adverbial clause. These are quite difficult, so go look for more examples if you can to explain it a little bit better if you don't understand, or contact me and I will give you more examples. Subordinate clauses. A subordinate clause has a subject and verb, but unlike an independent clause, cannot stand by itself. Since it will rain today. Does it make sense? It doesn't make sense. You have to add more to it to make the sentence complete. It is the subject and rain is the verb, because rain tells you what it does. Then, transitions. Transitions is related to writing paragraphs. When we are writing paragraphs, you need to make sure that your transitions are written in such a way that your whole paragraph makes sense. Transitions are usually one or several sentences that transition, meaning that moves from one idea to the next. The way it moves your ideas in your paragraph is how well it would be written. Transitions can be used at the end of most paragraphs to help the paragraphs flow one into the next. Or many times they could be at the beginning and then it changes from the one sentence to the next. Two very important things to keep in mind when you focus on transitions when writing paragraphs would be unity. A unified paragraph sticks to one topic from start to finish, with every sentence contributing to the central purpose and main idea of that paragraph. So that means it's united, it's one thing. Then cohesiveness, a paragraph with clearly connected sentences is said to be cohesive. It's like glue, they stick together, they form part of one thing. So those two things are very important when you write paragraphs and focus on transitions. We get different types of transitions, and these examples will help you to make sure that when you do write a paragraph on whatever topic it might be, that you use the correct transition for your topic. The first one is the cause-effect transitions, and those are the words I will read to you the words, and those are examples that you can use within these. Accordingly, and so, as a result, subsequently, for this reason. So when you would write something for this reason, it would be that you have pink paint today. Or then, therefore, this is why pink paint was developed, depending on your topic. Comparison transitions, by the same token, in like manner, in the same way, in similar fashion, likewise or similarly. Contrast transitions would be when you compare different things. However, in contrast, instead, nevertheless, on the contrary, on the other hand, still and yet, those are the words you can use as a transition within your sentences. Then you get the conclusion and summary transitions, which means you're ending it. You are telling them, you are bringing it to a close. You are bringing it to the end now. And so, after all, at last, finally, in brief, in closing, in conclusion, to summarize. And then the last one, example transitions. When you give examples, because many times when you do write paragraphs or even an essay, you have to focus on the different examples that you would give. As an example, for instance, specifically, thus, or to illustrate, would be the correct words as transitions within your writing. Then there's still more. Insistence transitions, in fact, indeed, no, or yes. Usually those ones would be used with factual essay writing or factual paragraphs. Place transitions would tell you where it's been placed, above, alongside, beneath, beyond, farther along, in back, and then you can see the rest of it. Restatement transitions, in other words, in short, that means when you summarize it, when you state it in your own words, when you bring it all together, you would use words like in other words or in simpler terms or to put it differently would be the best transitions in a paragraph for that. And then time transitions, afterwards, at the same time, currently, formerly, immediately, in future, depending on what you write again. Then we get different types of phrases. An adverb phrase can be used in any position in a sentence. For example, Bob nodded as if he understood. Meet me at the mall. Without thinking, he turned down the road. An adverb explains the verb. It's how it's done. So then you get an absolute phrase. The effort to regain the lead success. The team continued to score until they pull ahead by a wide margin. So that's an absolute. That is how it is. That's what it stands for. Then a positive phrase is one that restates a preceding term or expands or explains it. Her dog, a bull mastiff, looks ridiculous with a pink bow stuck to her head. So that means the focus is on the bull mastiff because it's explaining that phrase. Then more phrases. Types of phrases would be the gerund phrase. A gerund phrase includes a verbal, a hybrid that functions as a noun or an adjective. I'm going for a long walk off a short pier would be an example. An infinitive phrase. An infinitive phrase includes the word to and a verb as the basis of a modification of a root sentence. To write of the experience to the dredge up unpleasant memories would be an example. Noun phrase. A noun phrase consists of a person, place, or thing and any modifiers. This is a grammar lesson. Would be an example. Then participle phrase. A participle phrase consists of verbals ending in ing or ed or another irregular form of a verb. Having been lied to before, I was weary. So the having, the ing, would tell you that it's the participle phrase. And then the prepositional phrase is a preposition that consists of a preposition and a noun. When the sun went down, I hurried back. So when the sun went down is a preposition. It tells you how it happened. What is the difference between a noun clause and a noun phrase? A noun clause is the label. Noun clause refers to any kind of subordinate clause which can occupy the position of a noun or a noun phrase. It can, for example, be the verb or the subject. It can also be the object of a verb. For example, she has decided that she will find a good job. Here the noun clause, that she will find a good job, is the object of the verb decided. The noun phrase is a syntactic unit which can reserve a subject, direct object or object of a preposition in a sentence. For example, the yellow house is for sale. So it explains it. The house is the noun, but then again they also tell you more detail what the house looks like, the yellow house. Okay. Rules for reported speech. Reported speech is direct speech, is what a person said, the exact words. When you do write and you use reported speech, you need to look at these following points. Remove quotation marks and internal capital letters. Shift verbs one step back in time. Some exceptions in the ongoing present. Adjust pronouns and other relationship words. The young fisherman whispered, I think old Santiago is crazy. The young fisherman whispered that he thought old Santiago was crazy. So direct speech is where you put the quotation marks. Indirect speech would be the second sentence. The young fisherman whispered that he thought old Santiago was crazy. Reporting commands, invitations, and requests. Remove the quotation marks and internal capital letters. Shift verbs to infinitives, adjusting reporting words and structure to fit. Adjust the pronouns and other relationship words. For example, another man said, be quiet, Manolo, respect your elders. So if you do the indirect speech, you would say, another man told Manolo to be quiet and to respect his elders. So the trick with reported and indirect speech would be placing it in such a way that it's understood. Direct needs to be the exact words. Indirect speech is what you've heard and you are retelling it. So there's no, you can still use the exact words to formulate the sentence without using the quotation marks. But adding other words to your sentence wouldn't make it incorrect if it's indirect speech. Okay, if you are reporting yes or no questions, remove both quotation marks and question mark, as well as internal capital letters. Add whether or if. Take verbs out of question order and shift them one step back in time. Adjust pronouns and other relationship words. The tourist asks, is this a shark? The tourist asks if that was a shark. So that means the tense moves back, the verb, so it goes back. Reporting information questions. Remove both quotation marks and question mark as well as internal capital letters. Keep the question word. Take verbs out of question order and shift them one step back in time. Adjust pronouns and other relationship words. For example, her husband wondered, why do you think it's a shark? And then you would use it as, her husband wondered why she thought it was a shark. So think and thought, there's the tense change. Changing direct speech into indirect speech. Remove the comma and inverted commas. Put that between the reporting and reported speeches. It is optional to put that between the reporting and reported speeches, meaning you don't have to always put that there. You can have it there or you can leave it there. Change the first letter of reported speech into small letter except for I. Change the pronoun of the direct speech. Change the tense of the direct speech appropriately, and then change the words expressing nearness in time or places of the direct speech into its appropriate words. These are only rules to apply, and if you need to say step by step how you would be doing it, you would be following these rules. Now, every sentence that you would get and you have to change, or a paragraph that you have to change from direct to indirect speech, would be different and would be applicable to how you understood it. Connotation. What is connotation? Connotation refers to a meaning that is implied by a word apart from the thing which it describes explicitly. Words carry cultural and emotional associations or meanings in addition to their literal meanings or denotations. For instance, Wall Street. Wall Street literally means a street situated in lower Manhattan, but connotatively it refers to wealth and power. If you would say Wall Street, you would think straight away that that's where the money is. That's how people are wealthy and that people have power. But depending on how it's used in context, it could literally just mean that that's the street in lower Manhattan. Common connotation examples. A dog connotates shamelessness or an ugly face. So if you would say to a person, oh, she looks like a dog, it wouldn't have a nice connotation. It would mean she's ugly. A dove implies peace or gentility, meaning it's gentle or it's peace. So a white dove, and usually white as well, would mean that there's the serene innocence about it. Home suggests family, comfort, and security. If you speak about a home, you automatically would think it's a safe place, it's your comfort zone. And then a politician has a negative connotation of wickedness and insincerity, whilst statesperson connotes sincerity. So it depends as well. When we talk about politics, you would have a negative connotation. What is the function of connotation? In literature, connotation paves way for creativity by using figures of speech like metaphor, simile, symbolism, and personification. You need to know these types of speech. You need to know what they mean. You need to know what they look like. You need to know examples of these different types of speech in order for you to use it properly in literature and adding it with connotation. Had writers contented themselves with only the literal meanings, there would have been no way to compare abstract ideas to concrete concepts in order to give readers a better understanding. Therefore, connotative meaning of words allow writers to add to their works dimensions which are broader, more vivid, and fresher. So it colors your writing in. It makes it just more exciting if you can use connotation well. Figurative language. So we'll quickly go through the different types of figurative speech and their meanings and examples. You need to know these in order to use it properly within literature. A simile. A simile is a comparison between two things when you use the words like or as, and are extremely common in everyday language and well-known figures of speech. The late afternoon sky bloomed in the window for a moment like the blue honey of the Mediterranean. So they compare the afternoon to the blue honey, because and for you to understand simile or to spot it very quickly, you just look for the words like or as. Metaphor. A metaphor are direct comparisons. So it's similar to a simile, but the difference would be it's a direct without using the words like or as. For example, she is an angel. She is an angel, so that means the lady or the person you're talking about is compared to an angel, but you don't use the words like or as. The example I used here, the apparition of these facts in the crowds, petals on a wet black bough. So it explains it. It compares the things with each other. So metaphor is not that easy to spot within poetry or within literature, but if you can see that they compare things without using like or as, then you know that would be the metaphor. Hyperbole is an exaggeration for the sake of emphasis, humor, or effect. So the example here I've given, I've told you 1,000,000 times to clean your room. You've not really told the person 1,000,000 times, but you've done it more than once, more than three times perhaps, to tell them to clean the room. But when you write that in your writing, I've told you 1,000,000 times, it puts that effect there. For example, you could say she's as thin as a rake or as thin as a stick. She's not really a stick, she's not really as thin as that, but she's skinny. So it just puts that extra imagination and emphasis on what you are trying to say. And many times hyperbole can be used in literature to bring out humor in the writing. Then, personification. When a writer uses personification, he is giving human qualities to something non-human. April is the cruelest month. So in that case, April is just a month. It's a non-human thing. It can't be cruel. It can't be happy. It can't have any human emotions. But that then shows its personification. The wind was clapping its hands. The wind can't clap its hands, but it shows you that there's this dramatic effect, that what you are trying to convey in your writing would just make it so much more vivid and adds to the imagination. Imagery. Imagery is a type of figurative language that appeals to the senses. The descriptions can be about living things or inanimate things. A good example is from Wordsworth's I wandered lonely as a cloud, a host of golden daffodils beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So when you close your eyes and you hear the words, you can imagine this. So imagery, imagine. It paints that picture, clear picture with proper descriptions to put that picture in your mind. And if something is explained as thoroughly and detailed like that, then that would be the imagery. Then alliteration. Alliteration is the easiest of the examples of figurative language to spot. It is a repetition of the first consonant sound in several words. Betty bought butter, but the butter was bitter. So Betty bought better butter to make the bitter butter better. So the B is obviously the alliteration. Every time it starts with a B. Silly Sammy says so. There's many examples, and this one is the easiest to spot within poetry or literature. Then the next one is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is the use of words that sound like their meaning or mimic sounds. So any word that you would hear that is like a sound, like a bash or a bang or a boom or the chirping of the birds or the swish of the ocean. Here I said the burning wood hissed and crackled. So when you actually do burn wood, you would hear a sound, and it would be a hissed or a crackled sound if you have to write it. And that would be onomatopoeia. Then within literature and poetry, you also have another figurative speech, which is sarcasm and irony. Now, it would be difficult to sometimes determine which is sarcasm and which is irony if you don't know the differences very well. So let's quickly see what the differences are. Irony is used to convey usually the opposite meaning of the actual thing you say, but its purpose is not intended to hurt other people. So you say something, but you mean something else, but you don't want to hurt someone in this instance. For example, a person who claims to be a vegan and avoids meat, but will eat a slice of pepperoni pizza because they are hungry. It may not make sense, but it is an illustration of irony. So vegans do not eat meat. They don't have that. But when they're so hungry, they eat anything, and then they eat this slice of pizza that has pepperoni on it, which is meat. That is irony, because didn't you say you were vegan and you're eating meat? So that would be irony. Sarcasm, instead, while still keeping the characteristics that you mean the opposite of what you say, unlike irony, it is used to hurt the other person or people. I'm trying to imagine you with a personality, not without. I'm trying to imagine you with a personality, meaning that will hurt a person, because if you don't have any personality, you're going to be like, nah, you're just going to be there. So if you have personality, that means you've got something going there. So when you say something like that to a person to hurt them, or when it can be hurt, then it would be sarcasm. You get 7 types of sarcasm. So these ones you need to know, and these ones, this slide will help you with the assignment as well. Self-deprecating sarcasm. This category of sarcasm expresses an overstated sense of inferiority and worthlessness. So you bring it upon yourself. You feel worthless, so then you bring that sarcasm onto your own self when you criticize yourself. Brooding sarcasm. In this criticism, the speaker utters something polite. However, the tone of his speech has a marked bitterness in it. Deadpan sarcasm. It is expressed without emotion or laughter, making it difficult for the listener to judge whether the speaker is joking or mocking. So if you are the one listening and somebody uses deadpan sarcasm, you would stand there and you would think, are they making a joke, or are they being for real? Is this for real? Are they being serious now? And then that would be deadpan sarcasm. Polite sarcasm is a speaker is said to have delivered a polite sarcasm when his listeners only get to realize that his kind remark was a sarcastic one after they had given it some thought. So it comes after the fact. You only realize it later when you rethink about what has happened, and then you realize, but actually he was being sarcastic, he was being mean, he was trying to offend us, but he did it in a polite way. An obnoxious sarcasm. This obviously tells you the word obnoxious. This kind of sarcasm makes you feel like punching the speaker in the face. It is not very funny and it gets under your skin. If you're obnoxious, you're in someone's face. You do it openly and bluntly. So, yeah, it tells you as it is. Manic sarcasm. This type of sarcasm is delivered in an unnatural, happy mood that it makes the speaker look like he is going crazy. So manic is when you are not sane, when you're not like you should be, in a stable mindset. So if somebody does that and he does it in an unnaturally happy way, but they're being really mean, then it looks like somebody's going crazy. Then raging sarcasm. This kind of sarcasm relies mainly on exaggeration and violent threats. Again, the naming of the type would be explaining how it is. Then, again, in literature, we get satire. Satire is a technique employed by writers to expose and criticize foolishness and corruption by using humor. It intends to improve humanity by criticizing its follies and foibles. Meaning, if you would take Donald Trump, they would bring in the political aspects of Trump, and they will write it in a humorous way about how a businessman has become president of the United States all of a sudden. He has got no political background, but yet he's become a president. A writer in a satire uses fictional characters, which stands for real people, to expose and condemn their corruption. A writer may point a satire towards a person or a country or even the entire world. Usually a satire is a comical piece of writing which makes fun of an individual or a society to expose its stupidity and shortcomings. An example would be of a satire would be Animal Farm of George Orwell, where it explains how the Russian Revolution started. Another figurative speech, euphemism. Euphemism is used to express a mild, indirect, or vague term to substitute for a harsh, blunt, or offensive term. Some euphemisms intend to amuse, while others intend to give positive appearances to negative events or even mislead entirely. The following are examples of euphemism. Going to the other side would be I'm dying or I'm dead, would be for death, to go to the other side. Do it or come together in reference to a sexual act. Passed away would be to die as well, or to kick the bucket. To kick the bucket would be more comical, where to passed away would be more soft, more harsh, just not to say, yes, he died. On the streets, to be on the streets would be to be homeless, that you don't have a place. Adult entertainment for pornography, so you wouldn't say pornography, but you will say adult entertainment. Comfort, a comfort woman would be a prostitute, so it won't be as harsh to say it's the lady of the streets, you would say comfort woman. And between jobs would be you don't have a job now. You are between jobs, so you're looking for a new one, so you're unemployed. So those are examples of euphemism, and we use this quite often in literature because it also paints a more vivid picture when writing. So with irony, you get different types of irony. In this situation, we have dramatic and situational irony. What is dramatic irony? It is a kind of irony in a situation which writers frequently employ in their works. Dramatic irony develops when the character acts to show the ignorance of a situation which the audience is aware of. For example, in Romeo and Juliet, we know long before the characters that they are going to die. So that's dramatic irony. It creates the drama in the scene. Situational irony is which both characters and the audience are fully unaware of the implications of real situations. In real-life circumstances, irony may be comical, bitter, or sometimes unbearably offensive. So that's why we would use the different types of irony within writing, and usually within plays as well. Okay. So, as I said, I'm Mrs. Janse van Rensburg, and I'm your tutor for BES-ENG32. If you have any questions or you need anything to be clarified or you need more examples, I will gladly come back to you. You can SMS me or you can email me, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Good luck.